and welcome to Expressions. I'm Julie Robbins. Tonight, the show is all about pumpkins, and we're going to tell you everything you wanted to know about pumpkins, but were afraid to ask. Sometimes they get real mushy. Stay with us to see pumpkins of all shapes and sizes and how to prepare them for Halloween, not just to see, but to eat.
I didn't measure the garlic powder.
So stay with us for this spooktacular episode of Expressions.
Our first guest today is Scott Williams, and Scott is the general manager of Binding Stevens. Scott, let's reach across this big boy here.
All right.
Shake hands. Thank you for being on the program.
Well, thank you.
You're going to tell us all about pumpkins.
Well, I hope so.
Everything we need to know.
There's so much to know about pumpkins, and it's fun.
Tell me about this one right here. I don't think I've ever seen a pumpkin this big.
You haven't? That's actually a small pumpkin.
Oh,
This is small. This one weighs just a little over 100 pounds, but there are pumpkins that'll get up. You know what the record is for a pumpkin?
No.
1,061 pounds.
Oh, get out.
That
no
is
way.
the biggest pumpkin on record. There was one the other day that out back east that they weighed in at about 850 pounds. So they get huge. 6, 7 foot across is how big a pumpkin can get.
Now,
Not everybody can do that, though.
Well, no.
You got to have the right pumpkins.
So tell me about these pumpkins. Obviously, the size of them, it makes them different than another one. Are they called? Do they have names?
Right, they all have names, just like we do. And so they start off with some of the littlest pumpkins, and we can look at those here in a minute. But this is a Big Max, and then they're going to average about 100 pounds plus. And they're going to be anywhere from 24 inches across up to 6 feet in diameter.
Do people actually carve these, or is it more of a decorative
Well, I
type?
think the bigger ones, you'll see a few people carve them, but they're just decorative, and they like to set them around displays, and so they're good and ornamental. Typically, the pumpkins that people carve are the jack-o'-lanterns, and we'll look at those too.
Okay, well, tell you what, I'm going to come around here and we'll follow you around that
Okay.
way and take a look at all these. All right. Oh, now, we just got from the Big Max to what?
Yeah. These are the. If you grew pumpkins, would this be the size you grow?
Probably.
Probably. Yeah. You'd try for the big ones, and this is what you'd end up with. Yeah, this is a little bitty mini pumpkin, and there's a lot of varieties of mini pumpkins, and most of them, the two more popular ones are called Jack B. Littles, and there's also ones called Munchkins. And so these are just nice decorative pumpkins. Obviously, they just weigh a few ounces each.
Yeah, I don't
they
think
just
I'd
look like
carve
somebody.
that one.
Yeah, it looks like somebody took a big pumpkin and just shrunk it down. But they're kind of nice to put in displays in the house, and so people like to do those along with gourds and other items.
Okay, now, since you just mentioned inside the house, since it's warm, how do pumpkins last? Because, you know, sometimes they get real mushy.
They do, and they can. Pumpkins like this, most of these decorative pumpkins are going to easily last through the fall time. And so if we want to put them in the house or outside, you're not going to have any problem holding them for about a month or so. And then the next size pumpkin we have is right over here. Okay. And there's a group of pumpkins that are edible, and these are called pie pumpkins, and most of the pie pumpkins are going to be about 6 to 12 inches across.
Now, by that you mean this is what you make the pies out of, right? Pumpkin pie.
Yeah. You can mash it up and put it in, make a pie out of it. You can throw it on the ground and smash it any way you want.
Nice sound effect there.
Yeah, you like that? We'll cut that out. But anyway, on the pie pumpkins, these just have more edible meat than some of the other ones. Now, you can actually eat almost any pumpkin. Some people say, don't eat those, but you can eat these. What's nice about these pumpkins is this has a thinner flesh to it, and then it's got more meat in it, and it's got a sweeter flavor to it. So it makes a much, much better pie, where some of the other pumpkins may have a thicker shell, not enough meat, and the flavor's more bland. The next size right here are the pumpkins like these, and these are most commonly referred to as jack-o'-lanterns.
Right.
And the jack-o'-lanterns are going to average anywhere from 12 to 24 inches across, and they're going to be about 15 to 30 pounds on the average. This particular variety, why I like it, on the jack-o'-lantern, this particular variety is called Howden. the Howdens. And the Howdens are probably the #1 selling pumpkins around the United States. And the reason is, if you look at this, it's just a real nice symmetrical shape to it.
Right.
Both these are Howdens, so they've got a good shape to them. They're deep orange. They're good. They're nice and hard, nice and firm, so they're easy to carve. Okay, and they've got look at those stems on those things. Everybody likes a big old stem, so when they cut the top out of it, they've got a nice handle.
Right.
And so look how large these stems are in comparison to like the little ones on the pie pumpkins that tend to break off real easily. So those are the characteristics that make this a good carving or a good jack-o'-lantern.
Now tell me, if one wanted to grow these, are there different seeds? This is what, if you wanted to buy seeds for this, is it called a pie pumpkin seed?
You can buy seeds. We've got seeds right here.
Oh,
How
my
about
goodness,
this?
aren't you prepared?
Get into that. But there's a lot of different types of seeds, and these are 2 examples, and this one obviously is called jack-o'-lantern, and this one called Big Mac. So these are a couple of the ones that we've just showed. And what's neat about it, it is so easy to grow pumpkins. Every year people come out here and they want to buy pumpkins, which is great, but they are so easy to grow. And there's only a few things you want to do. When you have a pumpkin seed, you can either plant them in rows or you can plant them in mounds. Most of the homeowners, we like to grow them in mounds, and we'll dig a mound. We'll make a little mound about 3 inches tall by about 12 to 18 inches across, and then make a little depression in the top of the mound, and then you'll poke your seeds in the top about 1 inch deep. And the reason you do that is that mound will help absorb all the heat and make it warm, and the depression will help it so you can water it and get moisture to it.
Is there a certain time of year that you need to do this?
You'll want to do them in the late spring or early summer months, and they'll take about, normally, depending on the variety, they'll take from 90 to 120 days for that seed to turn into a pumpkin. All right, and so then they like nice warm weather. Now the problem you'll have is this summer, like we had this year, which was extremely hot, so the pumpkin harvest is actually a little bit less this year. A lot of them didn't mature, a lot of them cracked,
Right, it was so
a lot of them floated away the other day. but they normally take about 90 to 120 days to turn into a pumpkin.
Get your pen and paper ready, because when we come back, we're going to give you some great recipes on how to fix pumpkin pie and pumpkin seeds.
And now for the recipe of the Harvest Pumpkin Pie, courtesy of Vala's Pumpkin Patch Fall Fun Cookbook. The ingredients are 1½ cup canned or cooked pumpkin or squash, 1 cup brown sugar, firmly packed, a ½ teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 2 tablespoons of molasses, 3 eggs slightly beaten, 1 unbaked pie shell. Now you want to combine the pumpkin, sugar, salt, spices, and molasses. Add eggs and milk and mix thoroughly. Pour into an unbaked pie shell and bake in a hot oven at 425 degrees for 40 to 45 minutes, or until knife inserted comes out clean.
With us now is Dana Dobias. And Dana, I guess you are a master pumpkin carver. How did you get involved in this?
Actually, my dad was always carving pumpkins when we were kids, and he had the big kitchen knife that he would decide what shape the eyes would be, what shape the mouth would be, how to cut the top out, and all that kind of stuff. And then when I got married and had my own house, then I started carving pumpkins and was doing the very simple faces. And then I found this kit that was more intricate with saws and things, and I just said, oh, this is cool.
It's fun, right?
Yeah.
And you have children, so you just kind of work with them and teach them how to do it?
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
They love doing it. They think it's a lot of fun.
Now let's take a look at some of the work you have here.
Okay. I did this one myself. I did copy it from a pattern, but it is very intricate with a lot of fire in it. This one is also from a pattern, but my 10-year-old son Alex did it.
There you go.
And then this is a freehand design that was done by my 7-year-old son Kevin.
Oh, wow. And he did a good job.
I think so. That is not a sun. That is a fire face.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, I was going to say sun. Okay. Now, in order to do this sort of work, I've noticed you have some tools laid out here. Let's take a look at these.
Well, when you first start, you'll need to gut the pumpkin, and a lot of people use a big kitchen spoon, but I have found that these are things for getting out of the frying.
Kind of a spatula type?
Yeah, these are really good for scraping.
Okay.
And then the tool kits that you can get also usually will include this kind of a scraper, and it's easier to get into the smaller pumpkins with this short handle.
Now, these
And
are also
really-
good with children, right? They're plastic.
These are what you traditionally use for carving a pumpkin.
Okay.
I don't want to put one of these in my kid's hand
no.
because they were born with 10 fingers.
Yeah.
But these are what come in the kits, and with this very thin blade and this serrated edge, you're able to cut through the flesh much better.
Okay, now where do we start?
Okay, the way you would have to start is after you've selected the pumpkin and brought it home, you want to decide how you're going to cut into it and clean out the inside.
Okay.
Because a pumpkin has 4 layers. It has this tough skin on the outside, then it has a thick layer, usually about 1.5 inches to 2 inches of pulp.
Okay.
And then there'll be all these strings and seeds inside. And anybody that started done
All
one
the
of these
gooey
before.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The kids love that.
Yes, they do. The strings and seeds, but once you get into the pumpkin, you can decide once you've decided. You can decide the traditional way is to cut it from the top.
Okay, well, let's take a look at that.
And the way you cut it from the top is you have a wedge so that when it shrinks, because there's moisture in here and it's going to dry out, and when it shrinks, it'll still fit and not fall down on top of your candle.
So
or
wedge
whatever.
meaning you're cutting it in like this.
Cutting, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's, you said traditional way. That's the way I've always seen it done. Okay. But then that way also, it's really hard to light the candle
Yes,
in it, isn't
you're
it?
trying to burn your hand.
Yeah.
I have one friend that cuts the bottom off his pumpkin
Okay.
and then sets it on a bucket or a flower pot and puts a flashlight inside.
Oh.
Or if you had the candle right here, all you'd have to do is take the pumpkin and sit it on top of the candle.
Well, that's nice. Okay.
The way I prefer to do it is,
Okay, now top's not coming off of this one.
No.
So Dana, what are you doing here? Oh. Oh, yeah.
then you can light the candle or just leave it in
And
there,
no
and it's much
problem.
easier to light it, and it's much easier to get in and scrape the face.
Right.
And scrape it to get the face thin enough to make it easy to carve.
What about the candle? Would it burn the top of the pumpkin?
Not that I've ever found. I usually use tea lights, but any small candles work. But if your candle starts to go out from lack of air, you can do what's called cutting a chimney in it, and that's where you would cut a little hole somewhere in the top of the pumpkin so the gases can get out.
Can just go out. Okay. How neat. Oh, and it must make it a lot easier to. Well, I guess it would make it
makes
easier to
the
carve because you're
whole
carving from the
job-
outside, right?
Makes the whole job easier.
Okay, Dana, we're ready to carve, right?
Right. First thing you want to do is figure out which side's the face.
Okay.
This kind of looks like it'd be good for the face. There's
Yeah.
a blemish over here, but so we would go to the exact opposite side and kind of just, you can draw a line with markers or something, or you can just kind of imagine a line
Okay.
where you'd want to cut.
Now, what I'm
down
doing
and
now
then-
is cutting the back out. Is that this? Okay. All right. You're gonna have to show me how to do
I
this.
start at the top
Start at the top. Okay.
and
Just all the
jam
way
it
in?
way down in there.
Gosh, you know, we were talking to Scott a while ago, and he was telling us how to give life to pumpkins. I think you're telling me how to kill one here. Ooh, okay. Okay.
Let's
Ooh,
see.
I don't want to cut
And then-
you.
No,
Okay.
the
and
blade's on the
just-
other side.
Yeah, but I'd find a way, believe me. Okay. Now, how do I
Just
do
kind
this?
of try to saw with it.
Okay. Ooh, this one's really
And it doesn't have to
thick.
go all the way through. Just once you've gotten.
Okay.
I don't know if the other knife will work better or not.
Okay, you know what, Dana? I think I'm going to kind of let you take over here.
Okay,
You're
let
the
me
expert
see.
here.
Well, I don't really consider myself an expert, but if you saw with it.
Well, maybe if I had some muscles.
Oh, thanks. I don't need my husband knowing that I have muscles. Then he won't pick things up for me anymore.
That's right.
See, I'm coming straight across the bottom. I'm hoping I got enough out of there. There.
Okay.
Now, see if we
Just
can.
kind of
If
see if we can get
we
it.
have it really cut, which it may just be
Maybe we need to get the, yeah. Aha.
there.
There we go.
You don't want to do too much bending of your blade.
Yum. Okay, what's the next step?
You have to scoop all this stuff out.
With our hands?
No, I don't like using my hands.
Did you like that look with our hands?
No.
Okay, with the scoopers.
It's scoopers.
Okay.
Right.
There, do we each get one?
Sure.
Okay.
And
No.
you can scoop out the stuff in there.
Okay. Scoop, scoop, scoop. Oh, goodness.
And you get all the strings. The yellow is what people call the strings, and the seeds. You can save the seeds and grow pumpkins next year. If you throw them in your compost pile and it's not a hot compost pile, you'll get pumpkins all over your garden or wherever you spread your compost.
Look at how fast she did that. Yeah.
Well, I had a smaller piece than you.
Okay, once again, Dana, go ahead. Do your thing.
Okay, let's see if...
Well, while we're finishing up here, we found some great internet sites about pumpkins that you might want to check out. This is where you'll find the Swam Pumpkin Farm in Wisconsin. Their website has several patterns you can download. They also have lots of useful information about pumpkins. Now, this is the website of Robert Gusick. He is a hobbyist who primarily uses the Pumpkin Masters Kit, one of the many kits that are available to use. He also has some patterns that you can download and print on your printer. This is the site of Keith Coleman from Louisiana. This guy is a serious artist. His specialty is portraits of his family, friends, and famous people. He has before and after pictures of his pumpkins so you can get an idea of how he makes his creations come to life. You have to see his work to believe it.
And now to roast pumpkin seeds.
Oh, mister, I like this one.
Okay, to roast the pumpkin seeds, remove the seeds from the pumpkin goo and wash them thoroughly. You might want to wash your hands thoroughly too. Let them dry for a day or so on a paper towel. Put 1 tablespoon of oil in a bowl, add 2 cups of dried seeds and toss them until they're coated with the oil. Spread them out on a cookie sheet and bake them in a 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes. Stir them every 10 to 15 minutes while they're baking. Shell and eat the pumpkin seeds just like sunflower seeds.
And speaking of recipes, Dana has a recipe here to share with us.
Well, this was pumpkin chips that I just found out about this year. We tried them for the first time.
And I can try one, right?
You can try one.
Now tell me, before I try it, what is
You
it?
slice up the pulp, which was between the skin and the strings.
Okay.
And you slice it very thin, and then you fry it in a pan of oil.
Okay.
And then when you're done, you sprinkle garlic powder and salt on it, is what this recipe called for.
You know, I can't smell it. I probably won't taste it because I have a cold, but let's try it.
I didn't measure the garlic powder.
Mmm.
Pretty tasty.
It is good.
Yeah.
You put enough garlic on it with my cold, I can taste it.
That's right.
That's very good. Good job. Okay. This is the one I'm going to carve on, right?
You're going to carve the spider.
Oh, I'm carving the spider.
spider,
Oh,
yes.
now, why do we have paper on this? What's this
Okay,
for?
when you have an idea for a design, or if you get a master design, you can put the paper on. You can make your design on the paper. I use tracing paper and copy out of a book or whatever pattern I'm doing.
Okay.
That way I don't mess up my original master. And then you tape it on the pumpkin. Sometimes you need to fold it. Sometimes you need to cut it. I don't have any cuts.
So it'll lay flat
So
on
it'll
it
lay,
or whatever.
you're taking a flat thing and putting it on a curved
Right.
surface. Yeah. And then you take and you poke little holes. And the kits will come with pokers.
Okay.
But I found that a sharp pencil works very, very well. And you make sure you mark the corners and you just go along on the lines.
And that's how you mark your pattern on the pumpkin. And this is just tracing paper, right? Oh, look, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, see, I can see where you said use the pencil because you still can kind of see that lead in there. It gives it that dark, okay.
And if the holes do tend to disappear on you, you can take flour and wipe it into the holes.
Oh,
and
and
they'll
it
show up
goes into the
if you're
holes.
like in a
Okay.
shadow or something.
All right, now what's our next step?
You can start cutting his legs. You just connect the dots.
Okay.
That's all it takes.
Now, what would
or
I
his
use?
body, either one. Yeah, either of these saws. There's longer saws and shorter saws, and any kit that you get will explain the difference. If you have a thin kitchen knife, it should work just as well. I have seen the very thin. You put it in and you sew up and you go up and down like a sewing machine.
Oh, okay.
And you're just using it like a saw. You're not really cutting and slicing like you would with a blade.
Doing a good job, Dana.
It's one of those things I just enjoy. I do it only 1 week out of the year. Now, one of the trickier parts, you don't use the knives to pull it out. You try to pull it out with the pokers or the drills.
Okay.
Now there's
Should I start? Okay.
yeah, you can go right where
I gotcha. Oh, look at me go. Okay.
and around the corner.
Now, Dana, I'm looking over there at your pumpkin.
Yeah, I have a different one
Yeah,
here.
yours is kind of easy, it looks like.
Well, he would be one more traditional one, and also he's one that's easier to use with the knife because he doesn't have a lot of the curves, the intricate curves that you would
Right,
do.
now that looks like one that I would do as a child.
My father did them just like this when I was a child, and that's just what I grew up with. And you just take the knife and slice it on in there. And if it runs over, it doesn't usually show through when you're lighting it. Now, I marked this one differently than you would. I marked this one with just a regular watercolor marker.
Okay.
And sometimes, because sometimes you're cutting at an angle instead of going straight through, and sometimes the wedge goes in and you would poke it in, and sometimes the wedge goes out. Get the back off my pumpkin here. And you can poke it out, and sometimes you didn't cut all the corners, and so you have to go back and figure out where you missed.
Okay.
And then when I would be done with this one, I would simply go over it with a washcloth, and he's going to have
Oh, that's why you use the watercolor markers that way, and then it doesn't show.
I went ahead and poked holes just in case the watercolor marker got rubbed off. Okay, how you doing over there?
Well, I think I'm just about done, actually, with the body anyway.
Okay, now that's one of the bigger pieces, and it will tend to break some of these more intricate parts, and sometimes they've just got little catches here and there, or one will wedge this way and the other one will wedge that way, and it's hard to get it out, so it's easier if you cut it and into smaller pieces and try to get it out.
Okay, before I try to pop it out?
Right, before you try to pop it out.
Okay. I gotcha. Cutting this baby in half. Okay. All right, now I cut it in half.
Okay.
Now I use the little, what do
Well,
I
you got to
use?
use a poker or a drill to try to pull it out,
Okay.
but you want to be, pushing it from the back.
Ah. Let me see if I can pull this out and get this.
Yeah, see if we haven't done all these
Okay, now
corners.
why is there a hole in the bottom here?
Now that was the other way of cutting it when you first start out. That one can be done from the bottom, and you can either set it on top of a candle, or you can put it on top of a flower pot or a bucket and put a flashlight inside.
How neat.
Then you're not messing with fire.
Tell me, if you're picking one up, should you pick one up by the base or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
never by the stem, I guess?
Stem, if you like your stem, then don't pick it up by the stem. That's where it was growing from the vine out in the field, and it will tend to dry up, and that's one of the signs that they know that a pumpkin's ready to harvest is when the vine dries around that particular pumpkin, and as it dries, it's going to want to fall off from the pumpkin.
Now tell me, when we're done with these, how long do they normally last? I mean, is there a way to preserve them so they last quite a while, or?
There's several different little tricks you can do. My favorite is to just wait until October 30th or 31st before you carve it, and that way it'll be at its freshest. But there are other ways you can stop it. If you're not using a candle, I've tried it myself, and you can use Vaseline, but that is a petroleum product, so I've had some people say, well, isn't your pumpkin going to catch on fire? And it hasn't happened yet.
No, what do you mean when you say Vaseline? You coat it?
On the cut surfaces, which would be kind of tricky in here. I guess you could stick a knife or something, and you'd coat it, and so it keeps it from drying out so much. The cooler you can keep the pumpkin without it freezing, the better. The longer it'll keep for you. Right. Some people put them in the refrigerator, and when you put it in the refrigerator, that's very drying. You put a piece of Saran wrap over the whole cut surface.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And if it does dry out, you can take a big bucket of water and soak it for anywhere from 1 to 8 hours, and it will help rejuvenate it.
In cold water?
By that time you're using the garden hose, so it's whatever. If you're trying to fill a bucket.
cold water. Well, Dana, I think we did a good job here.
I do too.
Well, especially yours. Of course, you're the master pumpkin carver. My spider's okay, I guess, huh?
I think he's a wonderful spider.
Well, thank you for teaching me how to do it, and thank you for being on the program
I
today.
really enjoyed it.
And we thank you for watching Expressions, and we hope we've given you some helpful tips on how to carve a pumpkin. And we're going to leave you tonight with some dimmer lights and the spookier pumpkins with the candles in it, as I guess they're meant to be seen as jack-o'-lanterns, right?
That's right.
We'll see you next week on Expressions.